You're listening to Were You Still Talking? Okay, the recording's on. I'm recording from two different sources. And I guess we're not going to do any pre-interview because who needs that? That's crap. I actually, for the first time, practice an intro, and we'll just see how it goes.
Okay.
I've never done that before. So in the studio today, I have Sean Prescott. He is a world-famous actor. Okay, at least he's an actor in Eugene. He's done theater. He actually does a karaoke. He's a karaoke DJ at various clubs around here. He does a trivia night at several places. He's been in the Nerd at Cottage Theater, Opera Trio at the Holt Center, Forbidden Planet with Trek Theater in the park. Love Trek Theater. Wonder of the World at the Very Little Theater, another one of our favorite places to hang out. He's also been in Charlotte's Redemption, which you can find on YouTube, The Silence, which you can find on YouTube, The Message, which you can find on YouTube, and The Eater.
Which you can find.
No, I don't think so. And he's done short films, including Taking Tibet, Dirty Deeds, The Black, starring yours truly, sort of, and Hungry. So that's that resume. And then he also worked as a technical account manager at Symantec for a long, long time. Grown. I'm totally, when I was rehearsing this earlier, I forgot what they make. They make Norton Antivirus. Norton Security. Yeah. And they've been in Eugene for a long, long time. And now you're back in school. You're still going to school?
Well, yes, but I'm actually going to school for the first time. So.
Oh, for the first time? Okay.
Yeah, I never went to college.
Even braver.
Yeah.
I think that's awesome.
Yeah.
I have nightmares about going back to school. But it seems like you're doing well.
5 semesters in and I'm still having nightmares. So, yeah.
But your grades are good. You've done well.
I'm doing fairly well, surprisingly. I hated high school and didn't want to have anything to do with college, and turns out I'm good at it. So, maybe that's the years of work experience, but...
It could be. Yeah. I didn't like high school, and I went to college briefly and forgot all about it, and then moved on.
Yeah.
And, so you... We're thinking of starting a podcast. You mentioned, I kind of want to start a podcast. What was that about? What would that be about?
Well, actually, so a friend of mine and I, who have known each other for almost 45 years now, we get together once a month on a Saturday and spend all day long watching movies. And we call it the monthly movie marathon. And my podcast was going to be basically our reactions to those movies. Mm-hmm. Because every time we get done with a movie, we discuss whether we liked it or not, what we thought was good, what we thought was bad, blah, blah, blah.
Nice.
And so, it was just an idea.
I think that would be good.
Yeah. I don't know if people want to listen, but it was something I thought would be fun. But it turns out I don't have the patience for audio editing.
Aha. That is problematic.
Really despise it.
So do I. That's why I'm doing this live. I don't know if you've heard enough of them, so you know. I don't edit because my goal is to go live to YouTube, but that takes even more of these gadgets you see around you. It takes at least 4 more. Yeah. Because I would need a switch box and I would need 3 cameras.
Right.
And I have a camera, so I would need 2 cameras and a switcher. And a tech. This is already right at the edge of what I want to be doing. Yeah. I do spend, I do an hour podcast. I do 2.5, 3 hours working on that podcast to get it up. Not only the audio stuff, I don't mind that much, except I don't like editing either. I can't. Editing just, it gets in my craw somehow.
Yeah. I put one podcast together. Mm-hmm. I actually recorded probably, I want to say about 8 or 9 of them, of us just sitting around talking. And then the first one that we did that we recorded was, we had actually decided the new Bourne movie had just come out. And so we took all the other Bourne movies on video and watched them in progression, and then went out to the theaters and watched the last one.
Wow.
And so
that's dedication.
Yeah. And so what we did was we recorded our reactions after each one, and then I put all those together, and I actually took like sound bites from the movies and stuck them in there, and, you know, grab music, which if I was trying to sell my podcast, I know I can't do, you know, I get that, you know, and this was just a project for me basically.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
And so I put all that together, but I mean, it took me 3 weeks, you know, to put all that
That's
together.
a lot of work.
Yeah.
Because, yes, I've done, I don't know if you saw the video I put up there online, but I screwed up did a video
I saw
podcast.
that. Yeah.
So screwing that up and trying to redo the beginning and kind of fix it. Most of the time was spent finding a decent free editor because I'm not ready to pay for editing yet.
Right.
But it was nice because I found that in looking for that, the really nice editors now are available monthly. And so it's something I could do when I get to that point, but not ready to do that.
Yeah. When do you make that decision when you have a hobby and you're just tooling around in the hobby and you know that I can't put any money into this because I don't have any money anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And then, you know, when do you make that decision? I guess I'm going to start putting money into this hobby. And because I have a lot of things that I do that with, you know, things that I'm interested in, but it's like, I'm not going to pay money. I don't have it. I don't have it to spare.
I'm already, it's one of the dangers of starting this kind of hobby is that, I have a natural tendency as a musician. I think this is a musician disease. When you start a new thing, you got to buy something. And I've already bought stuff. You know, I had to buy this headphone amp, but that was because I had all those people in for the podcast. I bought these windscreens. I've gone through a couple now because I didn't like the first ones. And I'm trying to keep it minimized. I've bought a little bit of advertising with very, you know, low amounts. So how you do it and not spend money is when you decide to spend money, my goal when I started, my hope was that I would start spending money when I was getting money out of it. And I'm still looking at it that way because I can see how many people listen to it. And so it's 20 people now. It was less than that when I started. Maybe it's 27 people once I put this out, it'll be like hundreds of people.
Well, yeah.
But, yeah. Once I see that Sean Prescott's on, that'll then I'll be there, and then I'll start spending money.
You're going to get like all of my family as listeners for one podcast, and then that'll be it.
Excellent. Well, if they hear one and they don't want to listen to anything else, that's on me. That's my fault. No. Yeah. So that's kind of been my thing.
I hope it takes off. Because I'm not just. I might sound like I'm just pandering or whatever, but seriously, I listened to the first couple. I thought, a little bit of stumbling there, but cool.
Right, there was.
And then like the last two of your episodes, I was like, I enjoyed listening to that. I really, I thought there was really meaty discussions and really cool stuff you guys were talking about. So, yeah, I mean, I think you're doing a good job. I think you should continue whatever way you're going down there.
Awesome. That's very helpful. That's very helpful. The next step is anyone who is enjoying listening to it could start sharing it with their friends, and then maybe more people would hear it.
I'll hold my hand up and say I'm not a social media
and I understand that. That's totally fine.
Yeah.
There's plenty of people I know listening that are social media mavens, including some of the people who have been on the podcast. So, I just thought I'd put that out there.
Yeah, no, that's
do a little begging. But that's my thing. I really think, you can see a billion videos about here's what you should do to get new followers. Here's what you should do to get people, here's what you should do to advertise your podcast. And then you'll see I've run into a few blogs and videos of smart people who say, here's how you get viewers, here's how you get listeners, here's how you build a following. You put more stuff out there. And I'm 100% behind that. I just, it's hard to be because when you start something like this and it's going out to 9 different places and it's free and potentially millions of people could hear it because there's billions of people that have that it's available to, and your mind starts going, wow, why am I only getting 10 people listening? And it's, but then occasionally I'll come back to earth and go, well, because I've only got 10 podcasts.
Right.
When I have 100, there'll be more, just be patient, put it out there, try and make it good.
I think there's a sweet spot, though, because I've noticed that, well, for me, I'm one of those people, I'm a completist. So if I'm going to go start listening to a podcast, I don't care how many are out there. I'm going to start with number one, and I'm going to listen to them all the way through. So if there's 100 out there, I've got 100 episodes I need to listen to. That's just the way I am. So it's daunting, though, because you might be interested in the subject. But if there is 100 podcasts out there already, I'm like, do I really want to?
I would be in big trouble because I started listening to podcasts largely because of this strange problem I'm having with my head, and it's hard for me to look at visual stuff. So I started listening to podcasts, and I didn't realize I was listening to the biggest podcast in the world from the get-go, the Joe Rogan Show. That's literally the biggest one out there. And he's on episode 1310 or 1311. So I don't think I'm going to go back and start at one.
No, and that's...
But the fun thing was, I said, well, what's his first one look like? What about this guy?
Right.
He's such a big shot, and thank God it doesn't look good. So it was really a relief to see that he went live from the very first one. It was like a webcam and his tech buddy, which I think is still with him. And it wasn't, it wasn't great. So it was very encouraging. So anyone, starting a podcast, go look at Joe Rogan 1. It's still available. And I
wish I had the courage for that. I do. I mean, I have the courage to get up on stage or be in front of a camera or do my karaoke shows.
Mm-hmm.
That's to me, that's sort of like I need people's immediate applause and attention. That's just a selfish thing, right?
Yeah.
But as far as like the podcast, I know that it's not a live, it's not a people just see it immediately thing.
Right.
You put it up and then they'll go and download it and listen to it whenever or whatever. And so in my mind, that's got to be perfect. And
I see.
And I doubt that it is.
I see what you mean.
And I listen to it myself and go, this crap, nobody's going to want to listen to this.
Right.
In fact, there's a podcast that I listen to, probably my favorite one, called My Favorite Murder. And it's these two ladies in Los Angeles who talk about true crime with comedy. I know it's weird, but it's a really good podcast. And one of them, they wrote a book together. And one of the things that one of the ladies says is she was diagnosed by her therapist as worshiping at the altar of doubt.
Oh, right.
And I really love that. That really spoke to me. That's like
that's a really good...
Yeah.
That's a really good phrase. I think it's extremely common among musicians, actors, entertainers. Yeah. The reason that
I doubt everything.
I can't say that I'm going to do 20 of these. I really don't know.
Yeah.
I did one and had the wherewithal to put it out there. And once I did one, I thought, well, that was a lot of work. I should at least do enough that it's not so much work every time.
Right.
And I'm almost at that point. I'm almost at the point where I can, crank things up and go. And then, but
automating the process.
What's that?
Automating the process.
Yeah, it's getting closer and closer. I still have to write out things, which I'm not thrilled about writing, write the description out and what I did and have to remember what I said on the podcast a little bit. And I have to listen to them. That's the hardest part. I don't listen. I tend to go back and listen just in case, like, did something happen? Did a bomb go off that I didn't realize?
Right.
Or something like that. So
is there a weird ticking noise in the background the entire time?
Yes, exactly.
Like
so I sort of have to listen to them as a tech. That's the most annoying thing because as with many people that have been on the podcast, I don't like my voice either. But, I pretend I do as a podcaster. I pretend I love it. What a voice.
What a great one.
What a guy. Then, so when this kind of segues into another question, did you train at all as an actor or did you just start acting at some point?
Oh, that's a good question. I think the first time I did any acting was in church when I was 8, 9, maybe somewhere around there.
Oh, wow. Wow.
They were putting on plays and they were taking obviously patches from the Bible and making plays out of little scenes and stuff. And I played a kid who is running away and meets the prodigal son, and they have a discussion. And from there, I think, and then I started doing school stuff and pretty much did acting all the way through school, high school.
Wow.
And then I did a little bit of community theater when I first left high school. Then I got out because life smacked me on the head, and I had to do stuff, get a job and all this other stuff. Didn't have time for it. I went in the Navy.
That'll put a little cramp in the community theater thing.
And it wasn't until, I want to say about 6 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
About 6 years ago, when Craigslist was a big thing.
It's still kind of big, I think.
Still kind of is. But there was I noticed that there were ads for acting jobs.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, people will warn me, "Oh, don't do that. That's just somebody looking to, murder you or whatever."
Yeah, there are some silly rumors about Craigslist because someone got hurt once.
Yeah, exactly.
Somewhere.
And so I was a little concerned, but I was looking at it, and this said audition for a movie, and the auditions would be in a park. I said, "Wow, okay," with people around. So that's got to be safe.
Oh, right. I see. I see what you're saying.
All right, why not? It's movie. I've never done movie. Let's try it out. So I went and auditioned and got a part, and it was just, actually the movie never got put out because the guy accidentally destroyed whatever. I never understood it, but it never got released.
What movie was that?
It was called The Chopping Block. It was a horror movie.
Because I was in a movie called Thicker Than Water that I was so excited about, even though I'm barely in the thing. But that was, I think, my first. It was my first one. That was before Hour Before Morning. Is that what it's called?
Hour Before Morning.
Yeah, before Hour Before Morning, and almost the same time I got those two, and I was so excited.
Yeah.
And that one just disappeared. Hour Before Morning took years to ever
so
come
did
out.
The Eater.
But it was such a good experience, although, I'm not exactly running to show people where that is. It was a good experience just to get relaxed, to do a film that's, because it's so low budget, it's very relaxed, very relaxed atmosphere. Yeah. And I've realized that as sets get bigger, they don't change that much. The process is still pretty much the same. And it taught me a lot about, for anything on camera, you really got to know your shit walking in. It's at least make up something. Like if they haven't given you anything, make something up before you get there, or you're gonna feel pretty lost.
Yeah, I know. If you get a good director, and they're able to at least steer you in the right direction,
it's helpful.
It's very helpful.
It's definitely helpful. Yeah. But I had days where I didn't know my script, and I knew the character, didn't know the words, and it was like,
I'm sorry,
not
I've
good.
Never experienced that with you, Joel.
It didn't go well.
Yeah.
And I always get very impatient when other people don't know what they're doing. So I try and show up and know the lines.
I want to know them well enough that I can at least ad-lib them. So.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, and most, of course, other things I've shown up on, the 24-hour film festival things.
Those are fun, aren't they?
They're a blast.
Yeah.
No idea what my character is.
Yeah.
No idea what my line is. Because we worked working with Nick, who I think is a really good director, he would be able to say, okay, you're this, you're a sheriff, here's your line. And I figured out immediately that's all I need, because it was like one line. So, okay, great. We did that. What's my line this time? Give me the line.
Yeah.
Here's the move. Here's the camera move. Here's where you go. Great. Let's do that. And that was just
you should
a
have
joy.
Nick on here.
4 hours in and out, and it was really good.
You should have Nick on here.
I'm thinking about that. Yeah, I should. I should have him on.
For everybody out there, Nick Blacketer. Just one of these directors where you may not think it, but there's like 70% more stuff going on in his brain than you see coming. Like, Yeah.
There must be, because he always has if you ask him about something, he has the answer.
Yeah.
It's not, I don't know.
Yeah.
He's like, oh, no, that's going to happen here and here and here.
And you look at what he's trying to do on the script, and you're just like, I don't really understand how this is coming. And then you see what he made, and it's just like, oh, wow.
Yeah, it's true. It's always kind of a big surprise. Huge.
Oh, well, anyway,
surprise.
after that one movie, I realized how much I loved acting. And then I started doing some other stuff like plays and stuff around the area. So it got me back into it.
So do you have a favorite play that you've done, production you've been in, or loved them all, hated them all?
I have to say that the opera was probably the highlight of what I've done so far on stage. Just being able to be selected to go in and sing in an opera choir, for me, I never thought that would happen.
Yeah, that's awesome. And the Holt Center is
at the Holt Center,
a decent place to hang out.
And at one point we were doing, like I was in a tux and dancing on stage, and there's just nothing I ever thought that I'd be doing.
So where did you learn to sing?
That's just I hate to toot my own horn, but that's just a natural gift. I don't know where that came from.
Okay.
That's just, I've always been able to sing.
Uh-huh.
I was actually, okay, this is a good story, actually. So when I was 11, my brother, who was a year older than me, was going to learn an instrument. And my parents asked me if I wanted to learn an instrument as well. And I said, no, but I love singing. And they said, oh, great, we'll put you in choir in school. So he'll learn an instrument, he'll learn choir. Great. So I get in a choir. 3 weeks after choir has started, my voice cracks.
Oh.
Just goes to shit. Oh, cursing's okay, right?
It is.
Okay.
I cursed on a couple of these, and that just meant that from now on it's
okay.
E rating. Yeah, they have it.
Well, great. I'm just kidding. I
already have earlier. So.
But yeah, so it cracked, and I couldn't sing. Everything I tried to sing came out crappy, and my teacher was so. I guess this has probably happened in his class before. So he comes up to me and he goes, all right, here's what we're going to do. I'm going to give you an A for the class. But whenever we sing, just mouth the words. Don't actually sing.
Oh, man.
So here I am in, junior high, basically standing up, moving my mouth to the songs, but never really saying anything. And so, of course, at that point, my brain thought, oh, I can't sing worth crap. But I always sang in my car. I always sang, in the shower. And so I was constantly singing, and then somebody actually heard me singing. So why aren't you a singer? Oh, my voice isn't that good. Yeah, it is.
Oh, that's good.
And so then my friends coaxed me to go do karaoke one night,
mm-hmm.
and I was getting like a major applause for singing. And I was like, wait a second, maybe I can sing. And sure enough, so yeah, that's really how I got back into that. So.
I had the opposite experience in junior high. Someone sat me down. I was in musicals, and someone sat me down to say, "Okay, let's see if you can hit these notes." And we were just at the piano, and I'd be like way off, and he goes, "Nope, you can't." And he just
nope.
Nope. He just walked away. So I was like, "Okay, the choir is fine with me. I'll just be not sing very loud."
Yeah.
And who knows? I may have been able to sing now. Well, at least in the last 10 years, from recording so much and working with other singers and hearing, now I can hear on a recording, well, that's not right.
Right.
That's not the note. So now I can sing a little bit. Like now I was able to sing back up in some bands and not have it like kill the song. But yeah, I don't have the confidence really to sing out front. Yeah, I don't. You won't find me on a karaoke night. You won't find me doing the karaoke. No. So what? You're going to do a podcast about movies. Did you? Are you a GOT fan?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Right.
So did it make any difference that we had those spoilers on the podcast? Or did you even listen to that one? I think you said you did. It was a couple podcasts
Well, yeah,
ago.
but I'd already watched it.
Yeah, okay.
So, yeah.
And that's what we figured.
Yeah.
We figured at this point, if someone's a fan, they've already seen it.
Yeah.
Screw it.
I'm sorry. Spoiler stuff, I'm sorry. You get a week.
Good.
One
Okay.
week after a movie comes
See,
out or a TV show or something, you get 1 week from me.
And
Otherwise, then I'm going to start talking about stuff.
I
So-
think that's fair.
Yeah.
I really think that's fair. I think if you're that excited about it, go see the freaking thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
If you're that interested in it, you're not going to wait more than a week to watch
You're
it.
not going to wait more than a week. I mean, movies that I really think I want to see, I try not to watch any advertising and see the first week. Get out there and watch it because the ads now have more spoilers than anything. Somewhere along the line, ads decided that they should show the end of movies. And that drives me nuts.
Yeah.
It's like, I mean, you don't know it till you see the movie, but once you're getting close to the end, I'm thinking in my mind, they showed me.
Yeah.
I saw in the trailer, and that's just really
My favorite
annoying.
trailers right now are when maybe they just show, like, have a little bit of music and show the title card. Those are like, okay, thank you for telling me that's coming out. I don't need to see anything.
Exactly.
You're going to spoil great, funny scenes for me if you show them.
Well, now they have behind the scenes before the freaking movie comes out or before the TV show comes out. They're showing behind the scenes. I'm going, wait, whoa. They did that with Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
They were showing behind the scenes before the final episodes came out.
Yeah.
I'm going, wait a minute. That's not a real dragon? Oh, fuck me. Why didn't I watch
Real dragon. Oh, I can't believe this. Wait, there's not a world
That
called Westeros?
sucks.
Whatever. Yeah.
I'm going to watch Westworld.
I'm going to watch. Oh, actually, Aaron Paul's going to be in the new
That
season.
looks amazing. Yeah. And it didn't.
I actually haven't seen the second season yet.
Oh, okay.
But
I
you
won't
can spoil
say,
it.
Okay.
Because, like I said, you get a week. But,
At the end of the second season, I really thought that was it.
okay.
That I can tell you that.
I love shows that do that.
Okay, that's pretty much it. But they do. One of the main characters does walk. Is head towards the real world. So I wasn't sure if they cut it off, like they killed it, or it's going to come back and we're going to see the rest of this world, because that's the cool part. And you got to watch the second season so you see the lead in.
See, I think all
And,
shows should do that.
that's cool.
They should be able to do both in the last episode of the season, which is wrap it up, but leave a door
And
open.
leave the door open.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
way, if they don't get renewed, if they get canceled, then you're not like, oh no,
Then
what's
you're
going to
like,
happen with
Not-
Balthazar
yeah.
in the dragon's mouth?
Not like season 3 of Deadwood. You ever watch that show?
I watched the first season of Deadwood.
Oh,
I haven't seen
okay.
any of the others.
Yeah, you have to really, really be into it.
I'm not,
But
I found out
it
recently.
just ended and they didn't know it. So
okay.
they left it on
I
a
hate that.
real cliffhanger. Like,
I'm not big
Oh.
on Westerns.
oh, okay.
I don't know what it is. I like every genre of movie possible except Westerns.
That's
With
funny because you
some
look like you would be in
I know.
westerns. Like the perfect look for a
I do.
western.
Except for some exceptions, but then again,
Mm-hmm.
I don't think of them as Westerns. Like, okay, there's a movie, I don't know if you've seen it, called Bone Tomahawk.
I think I saw that.
It's
I wasn't
got
really impressed with
Chris
that.
Evans, it's got
Uh-huh.
Kurt Russell.
Mm-hmm.
It's a horror movie.
Oh, okay. So yeah,
I mean,
in a western
in a Western setting.
era. Yeah.
There's Cowboys and Aliens, which is a sci-fi movie in a Western. So Adventures of Briscoe County. That's kind of sci-fi, So
Oh,
I'm not a big Western fan, but I don't mind that being the setting.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love westerns, but it's hard to find good ones these days. I mean, yeah.
Excuse me.
And it's funny because it's definitely a genre. Like, people either like it or they don't.
Yeah.
You know, either you watch westerns or you don't watch westerns.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of in between. And I was curious about people watching Deadwood and wanting to continue because it's so bizarre. Because they use an entirely different language in a way. So I thought that might be interesting, even if you don't like westerns. But it's one of those things. I'm curious if. Well, I like westerns and I still liked it, but it seems like some people who like westerns might think it's, what the hell is this? Because it is done so different and it's so far from any kind of real
Yeah, I
history.
compare Deadwood to Breaking Bad. And the reason I do is because Breaking Bad is about a person who has good intentions, but just goes bad. I mean, you just see Breaking Bad?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and,
yeah.
And at first when he starts out, he's a great guy. But at some point, I think it's like third season end or whatever, you realize you're watching the story of the bad guy.
Of the bad guy.
And you're
Yeah.
just like, oh God, what is going on here? And I love that about that show. And I think Deadwood's sort of like that because of Oliphant's characters having to make choices that aren't always fantastic, or at least that was in the first season.
It's a little bit, but Oliphant, it's funny because he is the good guy.
Yeah.
There's no other good guy in the whole show,
but he's
what
not
he
a saint.
does is it's still questionable.
Right.
Yeah, still questionable how he handles things. Okay, that will be cut, so no one will hear that. And we're back.
Okay.
Sorry, I had to edit some noise out, but it didn't work. So
oh man, nobody heard
now
my
I
jokes.
have to do it later.
All my best jokes are gone.
All your best. Sorry about that. Oh man. So I wanted to ask you. You're a funny kind of social media guy because you go on social media and you'll post something that seems pretty interesting, and then you'll disappear.
Yeah.
You had this long involved post.
I'm what you call a shit fairy. I come out and I sprinkle shit and then I leave.
And then you go away.
That's my claim.
It wasn't shit though. It was very thoughtful. Very thoughtful post.
I don't remember what I write. No, of course I do.
You wrote that you have so many questions about life, happiness, purpose, countless other topics, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Do you remember that?
I do remember that.
Do you have any any opinion on your own post?
Yes. Here's what I'll say. Don't look at the news for too long. I mean, you have to look at the news to find out what's going on in the world. But if you dwell on it for too long, you just start getting angry that other people are alive and doing things. It's terrible because humans are terrible. We're terrible.
So this was motivated by the news.
It was motivated by just like states like Alabama and Georgia doing their crap with the abortion stuff. It was motivated by the amount of crap that's out there that people are trying to get away with and how terrible of human beings they are. And, I can't fathom that idea that people can't just get along.
Well, I think you said something very important at the beginning of that statement. You said, don't look at the news for too long.
Yeah.
One of the reasons I'm steering away from politics, there's about three reasons. One is that everyone's fucking everyone talks politics, so why do that? And it's not a hard and fast rule. If someone wanted to go on a political rant, I guess I would let them, and then I would edit it out. But
there goes my other half hour.
Oh, whoops.
No.
So we both grew up in an era where the news was entirely different.
Yeah.
When we were kids and even into our 30s, the news was sponsored. It was sponsored by the station. It was paid for by the station. They weren't depending on ad revenue. The stations did it basically as a public service, and because I think the FCC or somebody, I'm not sure how that worked, but someone said you have to have, in order to have a station, you have to put like a half hour a day or an hour a day of news on so that people will know what's going on. And those people, those newscasters and news teams were extremely dedicated, and also newspapers. It was the same. They had more of an idea of,
integrity.
For one, competition.
Yeah.
Integrity, because without integrity, they couldn't compete.
Right.
And they weren't all owned by the same person, so they had to compete.
Exactly.
And then there became a time when, at this point, most of the major publications are all owned by one franchise, by one big conglomerate. News has become, when it became, and I've heard newscasters talk about this a lot, when it became a 24-hour cycle, they had to come up with stuff that's not news. That's where talking heads sprung out of. We didn't used to have talking heads when we were kids. We'd have an opinion once in a while. Some amazing, now I can't remember the names of these people. There was a couple that were absolutely amazing, like 60 Minutes. They would give
Brinkley
them a minute.
Huntley.
Brinkley, Huntley.
Yeah.
Several that would give an opinion piece that was well thought out, and they worked on for at least a week, maybe sometimes a month.
Yeah.
Now, the news cycle is immediate, so there's no time to work on a story. And all the time I hear, I would be okay with this on local news, but I hear on national news them saying, we haven't verified this.
I know.
They have a story, and no, you wouldn't.
No,
they wouldn't allow it.
Nope.
They would not allow it. But part of it is that news cycle that it's 24 hours, and it's because of all the social media sites. It has to be immediate. You can't wait on a story. You have to jump on it. So they'll jump on stories and report them completely wrong. And if it's wrong and no one knows it, they really don't correct it. But also part of that is they have found that pissing people off, and this is the same with Facebook, Tweeter. All of the, not so much MySpace, but all of these social
MySpace. Was your band on MySpace? Did you have your
years and years ago? Someone I had on the podcast said I'm still on there. I was
really?
Like, you are not. Anyhow, it does still exist, but they have also found that the more you piss people off, the bigger your audience. Especially true with Twitter, and we're seeing that obviously today. So I think that it's terribly sad, and it's also extremely dangerous. And there was when I was not that long ago, I think it's really in the last 16, 18 years since I've lived in Oregon. For some reason, I started watching the news every day. When I lived in Los Angeles, when a lot more real news is happening right there, I would not watch the news all day. But when fires happened, when an earthquake happened, when someone was chasing someone in a white Bronco, then we were watching for full time, for just glued to the TV. But I think that's a real danger now, is that people think the news is real, which it isn't, and they take this idea that people are assholes. I come up with the same conclusion, which is not really true. Nobody on my podcast has been an asshole yet.
So, well, I'm here to change that. No,
I'll work on it. But it's they want to show the worst of humanity. It's like we're all cops.
Yeah, well, that's what sells paper. I'm doing what air quotes, by the way. I realize you can't see that. That's what sells paper.
Yeah. So that's.
I have to tell you that recently I actually had a friend who. We were having a discussion at lunch one day, and he said, it sounds like you get all of your news information from late night TV. And he said it as kind of like you should be reading the news, and, or watching it, and not just getting all your stuff. And I thought about it, and I said, yeah, I do. And the reason is because if I didn't have the funny, I would just go out and start shooting people. Yeah. It's so terrible. Some of the stuff that's going on.
Right.
That unless I have a comedian telling it to me.
It's too hard
to
digest.
Where I can take it with a little spoonful of sugar, basically.
And there's a certain aspect of the news that I literally can't watch anymore. I think you can figure out what that is.
Yeah.
And I'm the same way. When a story comes up and I really want to know about it, I hit YouTube and I find out what the late night
Stephen
guys
Colbert,
talk
Jimmy
about
Fallon,
it.
or John Oliver or somebody like that.
Yeah, because they, for one, they had more time. They didn't have to talk about it in the first hour. They had it, at least all day for their writers to get it right, get a little more right. They have a much better way of looking at it. They're usually smarter. I really do miss Jon Stewart because I think his show had the best. And many people said it. Many people who came on his show, even newscasters, said he had the best news on TV. And it was funny because
him and his writers were able to distill the facts about what was going on and still give it a funny spin.
Yeah.
Or at least he presented it funny. There were a couple of times he got really serious on the show, and those were just as good as far as getting the point across.
Well, and that's the thing is he would get the point across, and it would be in my mind, because I'm obviously a crazy liberal. It would be more correct. Like the story would be more figured out, more accurate, and more researched. His research team must have been
Fox,
amazing.
Maybe?
But that's not. I don't even count them. Even the NBC or CBS, who I know try. I feel like they try. I don't know them personally, but they're entertainers now.
Yeah,
they don't hire journalists. They hire entertainers to do the news.
I trust.
It's got to be a hard job because you're doing what I'm doing here every freaking day with a script in front of you. I don't know if I could would.
I trust news programs from other countries more than I trust anything here from the United States. That's sad, but it's true.
Well, and I understand
like BBC
that.
and Al Jazeera and stuff like that.
My sister lives in Bellingham, and so they get Canadian news.
Yeah,
and
right?
It's usually more fair and accurate, far more fair and accurate, and a totally different spin. Anyway, probably enough about that. Oh, I was just going to say, I'm so glad that when Colbert switched and sold out to a bigger network, that he did keep most of his attitude and show.
Yeah.
I was really worried that he wouldn't be able to say the things that he could say before. So I was very relieved.
As much as I loved his Colbert Report, where he played a kind of Republican, pundit, but you got the joke, of what he was doing. I'm glad he got rid
Most
of that
of
character.
us did.
That was
well, that part was nice because it was getting a little stale. So the part that he got rid of the character, but he kept the attitude.
But he kept the attitude, exactly.
And he kept the honesty, and he doesn't shy away from stories. And neither did Johnny Carson, so I shouldn't be too surprised. But Carson,
man,
this dates us.
It really does. I love that show so much when I was
for all of the majority of the listeners out there, Johnny Carson was a Tonight Show host.
Oh, that's right. This podcast.
It's a podcast.
He actually sat at a desk
and
talked to people.
Talked to people before.
How did you fit 3 women in this room? This room is tiny. We're looking.
Yeah, it was a miracle.
This is like the room that Harry Potter slept in underneath a stairway.
I actually put 4. There was 4.
I thought you had one on the phone.
Well, I did, but that's what counts.
All right.
I just had 2 here right next to each other.
They're
probably not as big as us.
Kind of cramped. No, I'm fine.
You're getting claustrophobic in the pod studio, in the pod. All right, enough about the news. Let's get back to the questions I had. I have like 4 questions. I'm glad this has gone well because I didn't have a lot to ask about. So this.
I was kind of wondering.
To be
flowing. What am I going to talk about for an hour?
Well, you plenty because you can talk. It's a conversation, not an interview. So
that's true.
That's what I like to say. A lot of podcasts are interviews.
It's a conversation.
And it's the great thing about a podcast is you can say whatever the fuck you want once you decide to.
Yeah.
That was a big decision for me.
I don't know. Then it's recorded for ages. Because then you have to defend it. People listen to the podcast 10 years from now and they go, we don't want you working on our movie because you said blah, blah, blah. It's like, wait.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't mean it, I guess.
I'm such a big movie star.
Hey, I have an IMDb page. I've considered myself a movie star. No.
I have an IMDb page too, but I don't think Clint Eastwood's going to be hiring me for one in 10 years and then saying, no, I don't like what you said on your podcast. Oh, geez. Dream. A man can dream. A man can dream.
That's right.
I asked that question. Okay. I asked that question. Oh, did you have any questions about the podcast, about anything you've heard so far or anything like that? Anything you want to go,
Good question. No, no, like I said, I envy you just being able to start it and go with it and do it. Like I said, I tried the one and I was just like, I can't do this. And, just stopped.
Of course, you gave yourself a tough, you started really hard. You started very difficult. Because my first one.
I wanted to be spectacular.
You did.
Right off the bat.
Well, and you wanted to bring in all these other elements.
Yeah.
That's like when you do, that's like doing a YouTube video where you see these guys that, it cuts every like 2 seconds. The real popular YouTubers, they're doing some. I'm doing out these gestures that no one can see. They're doing telling you about some product, and they cut and cut and cut because that's the thing nowadays. Nobody has any attention span. They're only cutting like a half an inch across their face, and it's like, did they really do it? I always wondered, did they really do it 10 times? Because man, they're working their butt off editing that. Anyway. Yeah, that part is easier. There are a lot of parts that are still way harder than I thought. Getting people on, that's a little questionable. It's hard, yeah. Luckily, I've only had 2 people say no, but I'm out of the guests now. I have guests like on the, what do you call it? I don't know. on the schedule. I mean, they need the schedule.
Oh, okay.
And hopefully they'll be on soon.
They're thought he was about to tell me I was the last one.
Yeah, this is it.
And then the final episode.
Thank you for
Sean
listening.
Killed the podcast.
We end with Sean Prescott.
That's it. Wrapping it up.
Podcast.
Thanks for wrapping up my podcast, Sean. Appreciate that.
Really like it. Okay, I'm going to go to my everyman questions.
Oh, yeah.
Just because I'm enjoying talking to you, and I don't want to wrap it up just yet.
Yeah.
Even though some people think they should be shorter, but the majority don't. Oh, the other thing I found interesting about podcasting is that it is mostly younger listeners. It seems. I mean, I don't know for sure. I don't have any real evidence, but a lot of people I meet who are much younger than me, including Cameron that was on the show, do listen to podcasts, and it just surprised me because it's like, to me, podcasts are a throwback to radio.
Yeah.
And so it's an odd phenomenon that they're really just now starting to bloom. They're just becoming bigger and bigger, and people are loving them.
Yeah.
It's kind of nuts. I asked you that question. Never thought of doing a podcast. So that was it. Social media. You don't spend a lot of time on there. Is that because you don't like it, or because it pisses you off, or because your family members, or you don't want to know what your family's like?
Nah, well,
because you have a fair amount of people on there.
Yeah.
Friends. FBFs, I call them.
Yeah. Facebook has become, and look, I do Facebook. I also have an Instagram, but I post like once a year on it, so it's nothing. But Facebook has basically become my way to, be in contact with family back east. Make sure if I'm gonna go do something, I can tag everybody and say, hey, let's go do blah blah blah, whatever. And it's become that. But as far as the Facebook itself is, I noticed I was spending way too much time scrolling through it.
Oh, okay.
Just
It's a
scroll. That pisses me off. Scroll. Oh, she's cute. Scroll. Just like too much. I'd noticed like an hour and a half would have gone by, and I'm like, okay, I have to stop that. So
I see.
So
that totally makes sense.
Yeah. So I go on and I write what I write, and then I look at notifications, and I only look at stuff when people have commented on your post or commented on your comment or whatever. I'll go and look at those and answer them or whatever. But if I don't do that, then I'm like, hey, shouldn't you be doing that quiz for your accounting class? Oh yeah, crap, I've been on here.
I've been on here for an hour and a half.
Yeah.
So. And the weird thing is that every time you add a friend, it adds a whole lot to the scroll. Like you'd think it would just add. Sometimes you add one friend and it's like, oh my God, suddenly my feed is about 10 times as big.
I have to give a shout out to Ray Bradbury.
Ray
Bradbury predicted all of this.
Oh yes, absolutely.
All of it.
Yep. Yeah.
What a brilliant
This is true.
mind. I mean, just amazing.
And a long, long time ago.
Yeah.
Yeah. That is totally true.
I love classic science fiction, by the way. That's one of my favorite reads. Asimov, Bradbury, that kind of stuff.
I was going to ask you another question, and now I lost.
No.
I lost my train of thought completely. Oh, well, that's okay. That was it. What? Oh, you mentioned a podcast, didn't you?
Yeah.
What other podcasts do you listen to?
Oh,
and I need to. That was it. I was trying to write down the one you mentioned.
Oh, My Favorite Murder.
My Favorite Murder.
So My Favorite Murder, it's these two ladies in L.A. who are into true crime, and they're comedians, and like each they have two different podcasts. One is called the Minisode, so they have an hour long where they each describe a true crime that interests them.
Mm-hmm.
And then they have a Minisode where they read people's emails to them, some of them.
I see.
Funny ones or whatever.
Uh-huh.
And they're both fantastic. And I think they're both very funny, and they're both very enlightening. And they're both very upfront and visible with their mental health problems and, therapy and all that stuff. And I just find it very therapeutic listening to them. And huge fan of true crime, have been since I read Helter Skelter when I was like 13.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Somebody handed me the book, and I thought, who's this guy on the cover with the wild, crazy eyes? And, read through it and was just like, oh my God. And from that point on, I was hooked. True crime has been a huge passion. So that spoke to me that's what they were talking
And
about.
who's on that show?
Their names are Karen Kilgareth and Georgia Hardstar.
Okay, because Yeardley Smith has a similar show. You know who Yeardley Smith is?
She's the Simpsons, right? She
Yeah.
did Bart Simpson.
She's Bart Simpson
Yeah.
and a bunch of other characters. And she has a kind of a similar show where
Yeah.
she and a friend investigate small town murders.
I've heard of that.
Yeah.
Actually, yeah.
Um,
My problem is
I just thought it was interesting that another comedian has a similar
I've tried
show.
other true crime shows, and
Uh-huh.
they get a little too bogged down with details. That's another thing I like about My Favorite Murder. There's not a lot of detail. They're just they get their information off of Wiki or something like that, or watch an episode of Unknown Mysteries or whatever that show used to be or whatever. And then they'll kind of paste together a bunch of stuff, and then they'll just they'll go over their notes and they're talking to each other. Oh yeah, and then this guy did that, and this guy did that. So I
Oh,
kinda like
interesting.
that.
So they're not like investigative reporters.
No,
they're,
no,
they're
no,
just,
there's
they're
no
just
detail.
a conversation about. Oh, that's great.
No. It's like talking. It's like
hilarious.
sitting in a kitchen and talking to your friend about it, and that's how I think appeals
Uh-huh.
to me, because I love my. If you were to ask me what do you want to do on your birthday, or what's the most favorite thing you want to do, and it's always going to be the same. I want to go out with a bunch of friends and have coffee and talk. That's what I want to do, just about whatever.
Mm-hmm.
That's to me is the best time ever, is just sit around, drink coffee or booze or whatever, and just talk. I love that.
Have you seen comedians in cars getting coffee?
I love that show.
I thought you might.
Oh my God.
It's literally that.
It is
Plus, I'm a car
literally
guy,
that.
and so
That show
I
is
enjoy
so
the
great.
cars.
And I'm not a huge Seinfeld fan. I think he's kind of an ass at some points, but
Me
that
too.
show
But
is
I think that's
great.
yeah. It's nice and it seems to me that he gives a lot of space to the comedians.
He does.
Like he starts a conversation, he lets them go.
And
quite a
you
bit.
could tell when the comedian's actually a friend, or it's somebody that he just, I'll grab another comedian and go do something with them. Because you could tell when they actually have like a repertoire,
right.
and
Yeah, it seems that
otherwise
way.
it seems kind of forced or whatever. Oh, but I got to tell you, my favorite episode of that was when he goes and has dinner with Carl Reiner and Mel Brooks.
Oh my God, yeah. That's amazing.
My heart almost stopped on that episode. That was so
that
cool.
was very cool.
Yeah.
That and the president.
And the president, right?
That's pretty amazing.
So cool.
He's driving around the White House with the president. Oh, jeez. Have you broken any laws lately?
Lately? Lately.
Ever?
I mean, the occasional
When
speeding.
you were young?
You know.
I don't know if I can count that, because who doesn't?
I mean,
Who doesn't speed at some
mean-
point, especially in the days when they dropped the speed limit to 55? We were forced to.
yeah. This may be a weird esoterical outlook on life, but I mean, human or state or government law doesn't, I mean, I know we have to follow them and stuff, but I'm more interested in ethical choices
Mm-hmm.
or morality, or, I guess whatever. Like, I don't know. I'd rather somebody was making the choice to be nice than making the choice to make sure they put their blinker on, I guess. I don't know. It's
Oh,
putting
I
your
see what you
blinker on
mean.
is a nice thing to do, to tell the person behind you that you're turning.
Uh-huh.
So making the choice to do that is a nice thing, not so much I have to do this because the law tells me I have to do it. See
Well, I always hope that that's the case.
I do too.
I always hope that's the case. But yeah, laws are an interesting conundrum, because without them, it's tricky.
Anarchy.
And with them, it's tricky.
Yeah.
I'm always amazed that. Have you ever read *Sapiens*? A book called *Sapiens*. It's about the history of sapiens, and it kind of explains why we have laws in a roundabout way. But you don't in almost any time we don't have to follow the laws. And we are pretty good at it, and pretty polite people here in America. I mean, you can go to other countries and they don't drive. They just drive nuts.
Yeah.
And even certain cities, they just drive like nuts. So
I was in a taxi cab in Singapore.
Well, there
I
you
know
go.
what you mean.
There you go. Good example.
Yeah.
Yeah. It changes. It seems to me we're a pretty polite society, although, Twitter wants to disprove that. But it always, I'm amazed. Sometimes I drive around and just think it really is amazing that people are not running each other over and running into each other more for a social agreement than laws.
Right.
It's not so much about laws. It's about social agreement, because there's not a cop at every corner. And, in most towns, there's hardly any police at all. I mean, it's something that, and at times here, it's, if you did think you needed help by the police, it was going to take a long time, very possibly. So that's kind of just a, how do you put it? It's like something we all agree is there, but it's not necessarily reality, and we tend to get along anyway for the most part. I'm always sort of amazed by that.
It's nice. I would like to think that as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm hoping humanity continues to take that trend. We'll see.
Yeah. Well,
I don't want to get into political discussions.
But this is more, I think this is more philosophical, because on all the disaster movies, the world falls apart immediately.
Yeah.
And I've been in disasters, and the opposite happens.
Yeah.
It's
everybody pulls together.
Everybody pulls together. And we see it on the news, really, too. I mean, during this flooding right now, people aren't going and trying to loot each other's houses. No. They're trying to save each other. The opposite happens in real disasters. So I find that very interesting. Because in reality, the amount of people who are, I guess who are bad or evil, if you want to say that way, who are not following the social agreement, is pretty small.
Well, there's bad and evil people. I agree with that. There's always going to be. I mean, that's one of the things I'll tell you is I'm a realist as far as political things go, which so I don't really identify as specific, but I'm a realist. And there's always going to be bad people. Always. There's no getting around that. We're never going to stop that. But I have a theory that I call the 80-20 rule, which is, it has to do with kind of selfishness or solipsism or whatever, but I believe that 20% of the people in the world know that there's 100% of people in the world. Does that make sense?
Say that one more time.
I believe that
I almost followed.
20% of the people in the world know that there is a 100% of those people in the world. So what I'm saying is there's 80% of the people in my mind that don't really give a shit about anybody else but themselves. That's how it feels to me.
Oh, I see.
I'm not saying this is any kind of, like I've done a study on it or anything like that. But it just feels like 80% of the people in this world only give a shit about themselves.
And you don't feel that that's more of an American attitude?
No.
No?
I think
it's worldwide.
I think it's kind of a worldwide thing. Mm-hmm. But those 20%, and but I count myself in that 20%. That 20% are the kind of people who see somebody coming, sideways to the way they're going, and will pause and wait for that person to pass. Or, we'll stop in front of a door opening so that, nobody gets out. And it's just, are aware of their surroundings, are aware that there's other people out there. And it's the same with driving. Mm-hmm. I'm aware of other drivers out there. I don't just barrel through and hope that nobody hits me. I pay attention to everybody and, oh, this person's trying to get in over here. Okay, I'll back off and let them in, that kind of thing. But I don't think that's more than 20% of the people out there. I may be wrong about that.
Yeah, but I have no evidence either way.
Right.
Really, no evidence either way. I sure see both sides of it, and the bigger the city you get in, I think the more you see that. I think the smaller of community, the more you see people who are a little more attentive to those around them who, well, for one, they know them all. So it's a
I do think the ratio changes.
It changes
as far as size of city. Yeah. I think you're right.
And unfortunately, in my mind, the society pushes for that. I think that's what this particular form of capitalism that we're using right now.
We're teetering on the edge of political.
This particular form of capitalism.
Yeah.
The system we're using is really, really pushes towards, you're the most important thing in the world.
Right.
And, we definitely are teetering on the form of politics. But, that's the other thing about it is is our politics really the thing that's going to change that? The reason that I think that could be very accurate is that I always my head wants to explode when I hear about what corporations are doing to the world, and that corporations, I mean, they're responsible for so much really death and destruction around the world. And the only way I can imagine that is that not only does the guy at the top not give a crap about anyone but his pocketbook, but there's got to be hundreds of people under him that have the same idea that nothing really matters except my new Tesla. That's all that matters. I mean, I want a new Tesla too, but I'm not ready to destroy the world to get one. And, you know, it's one of the reasons that Tesla should bring their price down. So
all of this was so Joel could have Elon Musk send him a Tesla. This is all this podcast is about.
That's all it's really about.
I just broke through the surface, people. Wake up. No.
You got me. I am busted. Oh, my goodness. All right. Well, I think I'm going to try a wrap up now.
Okay.
Going along. I can't believe I'm going to have to edit this. At least I wrote down where. Or I could just leave it in there.
That's
and have
fine.
people go, what the F is he doing?
Yeah, no.
Why is, what? It didn't make any, they won't know anyway because I'll get rid of the buzz.
Exactly.
And all the technical stuff. So, thank you very much for tuning in today. You are listening to Are You Still Talking? And my guest has been Sean Prescott. And I hope I'll be back real soon.
Isn't it Were You Still Talking?
What did I say? Are you still
Yeah, you
talking?
did.
I don't even know the name of my show.
Well, I thought maybe I was here for the change of the name. I was like, he's changing it to an A, so he's at the beginning of the alphabet, so people will see it more. So.
Just seeing if you're listening. Thanks, man. That was a test. That was only a test. Were You Still Talking with Joel Albrecht and Sean Prescott. All right. I will be back soon as I get a guest. Be good to each other.